Chair calls the Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District Special Call Meeting to order. Could we pause for a moment of silent prayer? Amen. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Good afternoon. First, we have an update on school bond issue. Mr. Holloway.
First thing is just going to be some tips on getting your social media. The other is just the numbers on what the lift would be, how it would affect things. Last time that I had a conversation with anybody, we were still trying to decide on what the actual project would be.
How you doing?
Thank
Thank you. Thank you. You have another problem?
One,
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad to answer questions on the action that. Yeah. One thing on the, this page here, at the time of the actual 2019. So you can see some of these, on the first page right here, just kind of give you some idea of what to do. Here's the city, how to get your ideas across the community. Just kind of a, general checklist of what's going on. This right here, alright, I said this type of, this says value of the county. It shows you what you can levy for a school, for bond issue. We've been telling y'all $42 million, right, this is where we get this number from. Alright, now, it's gonna be our recommendation not to go to full down. Borrow some more later. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not necessarily a good idea to max out your capacity. So that's where we're coming up with the $40 million number. And if you flip the page, it'll show you what the millage rate would be based on debt service and the time period. Okay, so the first one goes out 30 years. What the debt service would be, and what the millage rate would need to be to achieve that. Does that make sense? And then it just keeps going on over the different years. Excuse me, the first one's 20. Then it goes 25, and then 30 years. It shows the different millage amounts. When you get back to one where it's got a highlighted area, it's going to show you what the effect's going to be on property. In that same order for the 20, 25, 30 year.
Thank you.
And then this is just a debt service schedule over that same time frame. The green. But again, I think the main point is to identify what the project is going to be. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about any of that material.
So my question would be, on this first page, the 1 through 5, how long would that possibly take?
I mean, it obviously depends on how many people are working with you, doing it, going through the communities and that kind of stuff. You want it to be, you want folks to be well educated on what the actual proposal is. So it's not something I would necessarily rush. I mean, I would say several weeks. I mean, 'cause if you're talking civic clubs, they meet once a week, right? So, you know, if you've got 10 civic clubs, unless you've got 10 people going out and giving a consistent message and everybody's praying on that kind of stuff, then, you know, you could get it done faster. If you got one person doing it, obviously it's going to take you 10 weeks to go around and hit everybody, you know? So, depending on, you know, how many meet during the week and whatnot, and that kind of a deal. So it's really, I mean, it's hard to necessarily gauge, but I mean, if you look on the second to last page, you know, it's up to 30 days before an election.
So have we missed the deadline to get it on the ballot for November?
So that's going to be a question for bond counsel, but I'm assuming so if it's got to be 60 days.
After speaking with the senior attorney at the Secretary of State's office in the Elections Division, the adoption of the resolution of intent to issue bonds needed to have been with the election commissioner 60 days prior to the election as notice to put on the ballot. We were aware of this, the board, we mentioned this to the board as well, probably sometime in maybe August, July, August. But as Jamie has stated, the issue is there is no project at this time. Is that correct?
I mean, I haven't been informed of any specifics to that. No. But you're going to have a project before you have an election. In order to ensure that it's successful. And because I think just going out there saying we need money for just one school or what, you know, what have you, I mean, I think you're going to need to define what you're doing, how you're doing it. You know, be very clear why it's good, why you need it. think you have a whole lot better success rate going that route. I mean, meeting with people in the community, you know, organizing, getting posters, information, that kind of stuff out there, that's gonna take some time. But I mean, as far as, you know, my expertise, we're the money part of it.
So, Mr. Pulley, what date was it when we actually started talking about this bond issue?
I think it was February 25th or 6th. But at that point, no professionals, anything were retained at that point. That was the work session. I don't know the exact date, but it was the work session in February where I provided the legalities to the board regarding what should happen in the first steps regarding the bond issue. And as you can recall, I believe it was the June meeting that we did put it on the table, but we tabled it regarding the professionals. And I think the July meeting is when we actually retained the professionals. But in speaking with them and with the administration, the issue, to my knowledge, is that nobody can do anything until there is a defined, detailed project as to what we're going to do. At the last meeting, the board, I believe it was a work session maybe, the board mentioned that it wanted to they wanted to proceed with option 4, that what you all were provided with. And to my knowledge, that's the only thing that we have, is that you want to proceed with option 4, but that isn't detailed enough as to be able to tell the voters or to inform them on what the project would be.
So once we voted on option 4, what should have happened next?
Well, the school board can only operate with what it has. So if there is no project idea or if there's no communication as it relates to what you want to open, what buildings you want to close, how you want to proceed forward, then quite frankly, you just kind of going in circles, which is what you don't want to do. But you ask what we need to do going forward. I would suggest that the board direct the administration to provide a plan, a specific detailed plan where it wants the school or schools to be located, a plan that states what it wants to build, how much money that would be if, you know, we need to do that. And then, sort of like we did with the reopening plan, the administration brought us a reopening plan, and then you all asked, could you take something this away, or could you add something to it? But I think that would be the best way to operate, because the administration has all of the information at their disposal with the financial people, with everyone. I think that would be the quickest way to handle it.
And with that being said, you still saying we cannot make the ballot for November?
The November election is November 3rd, and the 60 days would have been last week. In speaking with the professionals, the financial advisors, the bond counsel, and with other individuals who have had successful bond issues, they have advised the administration that it is wise to do it in a special election where it's the only one on the ballot. I know we have presidential election, and we have, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, do you know, we also have the marijuana and all that on the ballot as well, I believe. So that was the information that was given. Jamie, we were on a conference call with the administration, was it August? Beginning of August sometime. I don't have the exact date in front of me. Right.
But, did the board not convey that was our wishes for it to be on the November election?
Sure, yeah.
So moving forward, Mr. Pulley,
Yeah.
would the board have to vote on, say for instance, if we wanted it on there in December? Would that have to be?
Yes, the board has to adopt a resolution that states when it would like for it to be on the ballot, state how much money, state all the specifics of it. That would just be the prudent thing to do to inform the voters what they're voting for. And as of today, we don't have any of that information.
One thing that I would add is, before you pick the date of the election, you want to have all your ducks in a row. So, as of right now, you know, if, for example, you say December. I'm not saying it can't be done, but, you know, we've got a lot of ground to make up, right? So we're going to have to start having, you know, a lot of meetings with the administration. It's not something that's going to be easily done by just doing it consistently through board meetings, right? So, you know, where the administration would bring you recommendations for your review. I mean, obviously you're going to have the choice of what, you know, which direction to go, but we're going to have meetings with the administration pretty consistently and regularly, getting everything ready to go before you can, in my opinion, before you even set the date for the election. You want to make sure that you've got everything ironed out and ready to go. Does that make sense?
But did we officially adopt an option? I mean, I remember one day we went over each other, you know, just gave a, but I don't know if
We
it was
voted on option 4.
I don't even think it was in the minutes or nothing. I mean, I only think.
I'm very sure it's in the minutes.
Was that a work session?
I
So,
think it was a work session and we just did it like this. I don't think it was a meeting that we formed to adopt the option.
right. Madam President, Mr. Williams, if I'm not mistaken, he is correct. We all talked about what our preferences were, and no motion, if I'm not mistaken, was presented or carried. As a matter of fact, it was part of our consent agenda from our last board meeting, where I did make reference to the support being in favor of a different option versus what the public had supported in their responses. And again, as Mr. Williams stated, I don't think a formal vote had been carried. It was just the majority of the board identified being in support of one option over the other. But or the board records or Ms. Flowers can
Ms.
probably
Flowers,
speak to
can
it.
you, do you recall? Because I could have sworn that we voted.
We discussed it and we said it in here, but I don't think it's a work session.
That was a work session, and what happened was there were 3 from Ms. Middleton, Ms. Lewis, and Dr. Moore that their preference was option 4. There was not, you know, of course you all know at a work session there can't be any action taken anyway.
Yeah, I comprehend what you're saying, but I thought I recall us voting.
At a
No, I'm not saying, you saying it was at a work session, but I recall it being at a meeting where we voted. So I just have to go back and look at the record. Can you recall?
I thought it was a work session.
I thought it was at a
I know
meeting,
we had,
I'll go back and look.
Is it? Do you think that it was at the subsequent meeting?
I don't know what it was, but I can go back and look at the taxpayers channel. I just review all.
That may be.
Because I recall us taking a vote. I don't just recall it.
we did take a vote.
So we wouldn't have taken a vote then, and
No, I thought it was just what we thought at the time. I don't think it was official.
I don't see how we could take a vote and it not be an official. So I don't recall it being in a work session.
Hello?
How you doing, Mr. Ainsworth?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but one thing to keep in mind, so option 4 on its own, if I remember correctly, the number was higher than 40 million, right? So we still have a lot of due diligence with the administration that needs to be done as far as seeing where we can achieve savings by either shuttering schools or combining schools, stuff like that, before, it even makes sense to go to a ballot, because, if we don't know we can pay for it, then there's really no point in voting on it, right? So there's still a lot of background work that's got to be done on that.
That information has already been submitted. There's been no specific names to the schools. I think one option was closing 4 schools. Another option was closing 6 schools.
We did receive information from Mr. Bailey. That was a reduction from the 60 million to about 54 million. In speaking with the bond attorneys, they did mention that there may be some extra money available through, they call it the new market tax credits, that might provide between 10 or 20 more million for the school district. Due to the late notice, they couldn't be here today. They did mention that I could give them a call if there needed to be any more questions, but they did mention that the most urgent issue that we have is to provide a defined project so that all the professionals could work with.
Are there any other question, board members?
I have one other question. So, Mr. Pulley, is there anything that we have, that some type of guidelines that will establish roles of the administration, that everything that we would need to make our decisions? Is there anything out there so that they would know what needs to be done?
You mean the information that Mr. Holloway provided, or you mean?
You referenced a few minutes ago that we would need information from the administration. So is there a set of roles that the administration would need to be given, or how?
The superintendent recommends, and however the superintendent works with her administration to provide the specific plan to the board.
She talking about like,
Specifically, what is needed?
do you have like a printout of like, you said like the site and all that stuff, can you give us a printout along with the superintendent, that way she know what all they need to be doing, basically what you said?
I can do that. I can. It's really meetings to sit down and talk about what you need to do, because the truth is you don't have a location for a proposed school, so you would have to get with the necessary personnel. I know that we've been in talks with Mr. Johnson as well as I believe Mr. Ainsworth regarding some of the 16 section land that we have, the school district currently has. So it would need to be some informal meetings with the administration to determine the location of the school, how many schools you're going to close, what you're going to open, what you're going to do in Greenwood versus Itabena versus everywhere else. It's according to, just like Jamie said, it's not a one person deal, but what you're saying, you would like to have something in writing where the administration can follow as to see what they need to provide to the board.
And we need some timelines, because we continue to have these discussions and we leave and we don't get anything, and
I believe that the board can provide those timelines, because it is the board who adopts the resolution as to what needs to happen. So that would be the board's decision on when it would like to have the information.
I provided basically a mock-up timeline, but it's from our deal in Vicksburg. We did Vicksburg renovations in new schools. It's about a 6-month process. So next steps, what needs to happen is we need to have a meeting with bond counsel, with Mr. Bailey, your architect, myself, and the administration, whoever's in the administration that's, going to be kind of spearheading this, and have a roundtable discussion and start, working it out, put it on paper. As far as like, a strict timeline of tasks and who is responsible for them, that'll be somewhat fluid, right? But we can get you something in general speaking terms. Just to be clear on the savings by shutting certain schools. Again, that's not exact numbers. That's just kind of something that they've seen in other places. We'll need to get down deeper, to a more definitive number, right? So, again, it takes time to get it right because you want to be right. You don't want to do something and not have everything ready to go. So, again, the next step is really sitting down, meeting, clearly defining what's going on. Where y'all think that you need to, where you think you need to go from there, and then we can kind of lay out the roles depending on who the superintendent wants to run, facilities for, whatever, how she wants it to go. We work for y'all. Y'all dictate to us what you're trying to do, and we do it. We help you get there. So, but we can get you something. It's just not going to be. We may diverge from it. It just depends.
Question, Madam President. Dr. Bryant, can you advise on if the board wanted to seek alternative RFPs in regards to design and construction of a new facility, what that timeline would look like?
Yeah, so you want us to get you.
I'm just asking for a timeline. If the board decided, hey, the designs, the construction that cost preferably, but that have been proposed, if we were to put out an RFP requesting the new designs as well as cost estimates, how long would that process take?
And now I'm gonna have to yield to Mr. Johnson because he's working with RFP.
Basically, the board would have to vote on the RFP, so once the board voted and approved for that to go out, then it's a 2-week window where it has to advertise, and then we have to accept those bids, and then after that, it'll be presented back to the board for approval, so at least within the 3 to 4 week window.
And that's receiving as well as presenting to the board. Okay. Thank you.
So, Ms. Cloud, is this a board, this is a special call meeting, right?
Yes.
Ma'am, and not a work session? Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay. But it went on the agenda, that's what I'm saying, we just used it.
It would have had to have been if this is a special call meeting. Okay, would you like to read it?
I know we voted.
Okay.
Went on the agenda.
Any board members with any other questions?
I just had, like, if they, what Mr. Pigback on Mr. Bailey said, if we do another, I guess, we would have to pay for all those, right?
Well, you'll put it in, then they will all submit a bid, and then based on the bid and the design or whatever the board chooses, then y'all would decide on who y'all would want to go with.
So,
Mr. Jo- go ahead.
my question is to you, Attorney Pullitt.
Yes.
Because I just want to make sure that we're not back here again.
Sure.
Once we've decided and discussed, because like we going around the world and going around.
Sure.
I want to make sure that there's a plan in place so we won't come back and say that we didn't vote this, we didn't say this. So from this day forward, can we just make sure that we just not bumping our heads?
Well, I don't have any authority as relates to the project of the school district as the new school
No,
that wants to be.
but I'm saying as far as telling everybody their role and what's to be expected next.
I believe that everybody knows that. The administration provides, or the administration along with the board gets together to come up with a plan for the new school, for the school bond. And as to this date, it just hasn't happened.
I mean, one of the problems, like, that's why I asked Mr. Johnson, is people gonna charge. Because I remember last time we asked for another opinion or somebody else to go out and bid, and that's one of the holdups also. So are we satisfied with what we got, or are we still looking for other designs? That's what been some of the holdups. So are we satisfied with design? That'll be one hurdle we can jump, if you got something to be
Well, I don't know if it's about us being, satisfied with the design. It's, as this young man just stated, we gotta have enough money to be able to get what we want. So, as of right now, we cannot afford what we have, what we chose, or what we have chosen. Yes, sir, Mr. Bailey.
Madam President, just a point of clarity. The minutes that were provided by Ms. Flowers, if you note the language, it does not indicate that a motion was presented or seconded, or that a motion was carried, as opposed to much of the other language that is in the document. It does explicitly state that a discussion was held.
Yeah, I hear you, Mr. Bailey, but like I said, I would go back and listen to the taxpayers' channel. Thank you so much.
I have a question. Mr. Johnson, so were you all able to narrow down some pieces of land that might be available?
I think the only thing that I was able to provide was that 16-section land document, and I think what the board asked was a spot between Itabena and Greenwood, and that was the only option there. And I think Mr. Angworth may be on, he may be listening, and he can give you further detail on. I think that is a agricultural lease that's being leased, and I sent a video on yesterday where you could see exactly where that land was located.
Yes, I'm on the phone. If I could, did everybody get a copy of the map that I sent by email?
Yes, sir.
Did y'all get a copy of the map
We don't
of
have
LeFlore County with the highlighted areas of all the 16 sections?
No, sir, we don't
No,
have
sir.
it in front of us.
I didn't receive it.
Okay.
Ms. Cloud printed one.
If you could just, wait a second, Ms. Flowers is going to make a copy.
Okay, great.
But you can proceed with any discussions that you have, Mr. Ainsworth.
So what I sent over, and when you get a copy, basically it's a map that identifies all your 16 sections in the county. And one thing that came up in prior discussion was we have two different sections between Greenwood and Itabena. One is, when you get the map, it's going to be highlighted as number 97. And the other one's going to be property that it looks like Highway 82 runs into. It's just right there in Greenwood. And that particular section, section 1619 North 1 East, and that's the section that you have 600 leases, but they're those old 99-year leases. And if you were to receive the email I sent you, you could actually open that up, and it basically tells you all of the 600 individuals that have 99-year contracts. And I know if what we're really talking about is y'all are just trying to look for a site to build a school, then this particular section is obviously not one that you could do that. It would be the one closest to Itabena. It would be the 1619 North Range 1 West. I just want to focus in on what your needs are right now.
That's what we were trying to look for, what available land we had on 82. And Mr. Johnson, that's what you were speaking of, right?
Yes, it was that first map that I sent y'all the first time, and then Mr. Angworth sent the same map again to you.
So let me mention this. That large tract next to Itabena, you have an agricultural lease out there in the name of Saunders Farms II. That lease expires on December the 31st of this year. Okay? That particular piece of property is row crop, and y'all produce $62,100 a year from that particular tract of land. But that would potentially, if you're looking to build a new school, you could very well not advertise that back out for bid, and that would be property that you wouldn't have to pay a dime on. You already own it. The state of Mississippi owns it, and you could actually build a school on that acreage.
And where again is that, Mr. Ainsworth?
If you're looking are you looking at the map right now by chance?
Yes.
So if you see where Itabena is spelled out, it's going to be to the right, and it's number 97, and it's highlighted in blue.
You know, when you go out the floor, you got
So it's between Greenwood and Itabena, and it's closer toward Itabena, and it's number 97 on the map. You see a number 4, a big red number 4?
Oh, yeah, we see it. I see it, Mr. Ainsworth.
Okay, good.
Does any other board member have any questions for Mr. Ainsworth?
And you said it's currently being leased for $62,000 a year?
Correct, and that lease expires at the end of this year.
Probably go up.
All right, Mr. Ainsworth, we thank you for your time. That's all the questions that we have.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you and goodbye. That's all you have for us, Mr. Pulley?
Yes, that's all.
Okay. And thank you for your time, sir. And if you don't have anything else, you can be dismissed or you can stay to the end. Thank you so much. Dr. Brown.
Approval of the 2020-2021 District's Test Security Plan, Dr. Pulley.
As part of the,
I'm sorry, I skipped something. I'm sorry, Dr. Pulley. Possible training date for board.
Yeah, so board members, if you all can get 3 dates as we did in March, and 3 dates that you will be available, and then we will get with Dr. Brown to see which date that she could be available, and then we'll square it down to a date that we can go to a training with MSBA. So if you can shoot me a text with your next 3 available dates, and it could possibly be on a Saturday if you don't have one for a weekday. And we'll give those 3 dates to Dr. Brown, and then we'll set our training around that. Dr. Brown.
Is it a particular month?
Well, it's September, so I guess we could just shoot for October maybe. And that'll give them enough notice. Okay, Dr. Brown.
Approval of the district's test security plan, Dr. Pulley.
as part of the Mississippi Public School Accountability Standards 2019, each school district shall prepare a district test security plan which contains all essential components as required by the Office of Student Assessment. The purpose of this plan is to establish procedures that protect the security and integrity of all tests administered through the Mississippi statewide assessment system. This plan shall be signed by the chairman of the school board, the superintendent, and the district test coordinator.
The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the 2020-2021 test security plan for the Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the 2020-2021 test security plan for GLCSD. It's been motioned and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Approval of personnel recommendations. Attached is a list of district personnel which requires board approval. Contracts will be issued as required.
Mhm.
Dr. Brown, page 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 up from the bottom.
Okay.
At this time, while we're still virtual, is that person
We,
needed?
well, she was in that capacity last year, just hadn't, when she was approved, it wasn't with that particular title, but she was still the person for that school, so we wanted to make sure that it was correct.
Okay, she's not a new person.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other questions? Dr. Brown?
Okay. The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the personnel for the 2020-2021 school year on the attached pages. Contracts will be issued as required.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve personnel for 2020-2021 school year. On the attached pages, and contracts will be issued as required.
So moved.
It's been motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. Chair will entertain a motion to close this meeting for, consideration of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried.
Just turn it on.